Hi guys. So when I do book signings, a lot of people come out with questions and they like to ask me a variety of different questions. But one that particularly stood out to me was why do war crimes and atrocities occur? So I thought I'd do a little bit of research and try to get back with an answer on that. So through my research, I went onto YouTube. I started watching interviews about the soldiers, the Vietnam soldiers who were at My Lai, and kind of the reasoning behind committing the acts that they committed. Additionally, I watched a Vietnam veteran who came into the jungle of Vietnam right after he was kind of deployed there right after Charlie Company committed the atrocity that they committed. So if you don't know anything about Charlie Company, they were a group of about 100 soldiers, between 105 and 110 soldiers, and they were going into the jungle, looking, scouting, trying to find the enemy, and they were constantly being attacked, and they had a lot of failed missions. So they're not being very successful because every time they go into the jungle, they're fighting these guerrilla fighters. They're receiving sniper fire. One or two soldiers that get shot. They try to return fire, but they don't know where the snipers are, and the snipers flee from the field, so they can't engage them. So this builds up a lot of stress, animosity, and they want to get revenge for their friends that are being killed in war, being shot, wounded. Additionally, there's massive fear just walking into the jungle. So there's minefields all around. There's soldiers getting their limbs blown off. So imagine you're away from home for the very first time. You've just finished basic training. You've never been in war, never seen conflict, never seen violence like that before, and now you're exposed to it for the first time. So you have this psychological issue now occurring where you're seeing people around you that you care about, that you sleep with in your barracks, that you do missions with, and they are dying around you. So you have people, again, getting their hands, legs blown off. And this Vietnam veteran explains it really well. It's like walking in inner city where there's gangs, crime, and violence, but it's 100 times that, because every single step you take, you might be next to step on a landmine and get blown up. When you sit down to take a break, you have to concern yourself of where you're sitting, because you never know if you're going to sit on a device that's going to explode. So you have this constant stress and fear. And think about like an American guy growing up in a town or a city, never being exposed to these extreme conditions. So over there, Vietnam's 90 to 100 degrees every day. You're in military uniform. You're walking through the jungle. You're sweating profusely. You're being constantly attacked by mosquitoes. You're going into crossing a creek and you get leeches on your body. You have to burn those leeches off with a lighter, and all this is driving you essentially mad. You're going crazy, and on top of that, people are dying around you, and you can't get revenge. So with Charlie Company, what occurs essentially? They are on these scouting missions. They lose 18 soldiers for a little over a month, maybe a month and a half. Their friends are casualties of war. You're rushing them to get medevaced out, and you're still continuing your missions. And 2 days prior to My Lai, the massacre that occurs, Charlie Company goes in the jungle, and one of their most beloved, one of their favorite sergeants is killed. So he gets killed, and there are two other soldiers who are injured, had to get medevaced out. 2 days after that, Charlie Company is kind of being told by the lieutenant, who there was four, I think, four lieutenants. The one lieutenant was about in charge of about 30 men, and he says, we have a strong belief that this village has been supplying the Viet Cong. We're going to go in there. We're essentially slaughtering the pigs, burning down their village, burning down their huts, their homes that they live in. And we're going to get justice. We're going to get revenge for the sergeant that just passed and the other two soldiers who were injured, because he knows for a fact that they're supplying the enemy, which is complete false. It never occurred. It wasn't occurring. It did not happen. But so he starts tampering with their minds, telling them they have to prepare for this. Anything could happen. They may have weapons, they may try to use them on us. So there's a lot of stress of doing this mission. And then he marches his company into that village that day and starts rounding up the civilians. So there's women, there's children, there's elderly men who are too out of military age to serve, and he brings them to essentially the center of the village, starts burning down their homes, and of course, civilians at the time are, crying, and they're trying to comfort their children and stressed. And this lieutenant just gives the order. He says, kill them. He said, kill them. They're aiding the enemy. And what this Vietnam veteran talks about again is he talks about the certain threads that kind of manipulate your mind into where you can't get justice for the men that are being killed in your unit. You can't find the enemy. You're extremely stressed. You've been given orders to shoot. And all of this culmination essentially causes you to open fire on civilians and kill them. So they killed, again, about 500 civilians. They left them in a mass grave. And fortunately, there was one soldier who stopped the violence. They were going to probably eradicate the whole village, but there was a man named Hugh Thompson. He was a helicopter pilot. He flew over and he saw the firing. Initially, he thought they were engaged in a firefight, and was going to aid the American soldiers. But from what he could see was that they were just firing upon civilians. So he actually flew his chopper in between a group of Charlie Company soldiers, and he landed, got out, and told the soldiers that he is taking these civilians, and he rescued 9 civilians that day, and flew them off. And he actually engaged Charlie Company. He said, "You need to stop this now. This is a massacre. You guys are murdering innocent civilians. And if you continue to do so, I will open fire on you." So he was going to get in his helicopter, fly overhead, and start firing upon Charlie Company. So at that moment, when he said that, Charlie Company got a grip on reality, snapped back in and said, "Yes, we have committed these acts." And it took like a second for them to realize that they were in the wrong, and then they stopped committing that act of violence. But the damage was already done. Um, so I think looking at all of this, again, it's a culmination of things. There's certain conditions that lead people down a path of evil and darkness, the dark side of humanity, where you start believing that other people are inhuman, and that their lives don't matter, and you can take a life, of a child or a mother. It's a culmination of things that lead to that. It's not just I was given orders. There's a lot of reasons, and as a psychologist says, it's an overstressed, overworked mind. You're constantly under stress, constantly under pressure of, your own life. Your life essentially might end at any moment. You're confronted with friends and comrades who are dying around you, and all of this stress and pressure really gets to you and builds up, and essentially you'll hit a point where it's gone too far, and then you start hurting the people around you, even if they are innocent and they didn't do anything to you. And I think that pressure point for them was losing a sergeant that they really looked up to and admired. And when he was killed, along with 2 other soldiers being injured, they went in there with an objective to cause harm and hurt and get revenge. And that's just, a switch. Um, so again, you have this baggage and this buildup of one thing after another, and it culminates into you snapping, and an explosion goes off, and you start hurting people around you for essentially no reason. So that was the soldiers' thoughts in the interview, and I just wanted to share that with you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, I do the best I can with trying to explain things, and these atrocities have occurred across every nation. You can look at the violent acts committed by the Japanese in World War II at Nanjing, China, where they were beheading so many people and killing, doing horrific acts to these people. You can obviously research that and learn a little bit more about it. And of course, we had Nazi Germany, who killed over 6 million Jews. And we have the incidents that are even occurring relevant to today. We had situations in Afghanistan, we had situations in Iraq where there was torture being committed. And essentially, it just boils over where, if you're not out there, having successful missions, taking down the enemy, essentially the enemy becomes everyone around you when you're in constant fear. Thank you.